Have you ever apologized for feeling something you never chose to feel? Not because you were wrong, not because anyone hurt you, but because your emotions felt like too much for everyone else. Maybe you've cried during a movie over a song, or because someone spoke to you with just a little disappointment in their voice. Meanwhile, everyone else seemed perfectly fine. So eventually, you started asking yourself the same question. Why am I like this? Why can't I be stronger? Why do I cry so easily? For years, people have called emotional individuals too sensitive, too emotional, too weak, too dramatic. But what if that's one of the biggest misunderstandings about the human mind? Because psychology tells a very different story, and what your tears may actually reveal has far less to do with weakness than you've been led to believe. Today, we're going inside the hidden psychology of people who cry easily, and by the end of this documentary, you may never look at tears the same way again. From the time we're children, many of us are taught the same lesson. Don't cry. Be strong. Hold it together. Some hear it from their parents. Some hear it from teachers. Some hear it from friends. And many learn it from the world itself. Somewhere along the way, the world quietly teaches us that tears belong to children and strength belongs to everyone else. Slowly, we begin treating tears like evidence of failure, as if emotions are something to hide, something to control, something to apologize for. But here's something most people never realize. Your brain was never designed to eliminate emotions. It was designed to experience them. Think about it. You would never call someone weak because they feel physical pain. Pain exists for a reason. It protects you. It tells your body that something needs attention. Emotions work in almost the same way. Sadness, fear, grief, compassion, even tears are part of an ancient survival system that existed long before modern society did. So why do some people cry while others barely shed a tear? Is it personality, genetics, childhood, or is something much deeper happening inside the brain? Because the answer has almost nothing to do with weakness. In fact, psychologists have discovered that people who cry easily often process the world very differently from everyone else. They don't live in a more emotional world. They live in the same world, but their brain notices what everyone else walks past. And once you understand that, their emotions begin to make perfect sense, because hidden beneath every tear is a psychological story most people never see. But before we can understand why some people cry so easily, we first need to understand what actually happens inside the brain the moment a tear begins to form.
Most people believe that tears begin in the eyes, but they don't. Every tear you have ever cried began long before your eyes became wet. They begin deep inside the brain. Every emotion you experience, whether it's sadness, relief, gratitude, or overwhelming joy, starts as tiny electrical signals moving through a network your brain has been building since the day you were born. Deep inside that network rests a small structure, no larger than an almond, Psychologists call it the amygdala. Its job isn't simply to detect danger. Its job is to decide what matters emotionally. A painful memory, a goodbye you weren't ready for, a stranger's kindness, a song that reminds you of someone you've lost to another person. Those moments may seem ordinary, but to your brain, they can feel deeply significant. Your brain never asks, is this emotion logical? It asks, does this matter enough to remember, to protect, or to survive? And the moment something feels important, the amygdala sends a signal throughout the brain, not to make you cry, but to make you pay attention, because emotion has always been the brain's way of saying, this moment matters. But emotion alone doesn't create tears. Your brain still has another decision to make. Another region called the prefrontal cortex begins interpreting what you're feeling. It compares the present moment with your memories, your experiences, your beliefs, everything that has ever shaped you. Most of the time, these two systems work together beautifully. One feels, the other understands. But sometimes, an emotion becomes so powerful that words are no longer enough. And when language can no longer carry what you're feeling, the body begins speaking instead through tears. This is why people don't only cry when they're sad, they cry when they're relieved, when they're overwhelmed, when they're reunited with someone they love, when years of pressure finally begin to disappear. Sometimes people even cry because for the first time they feel understood. In other words, crying isn't simply an emotional reaction. It's communication, a language the human brain developed long before human beings ever learned to speak. And perhaps that's why seeing someone cry can affect us so deeply, because without saying a single word, their brain is already telling ours that something important is happening. But if every human brain is capable of producing tears, why do some people cry so much more easily than others? Because the answer isn't hidden inside the tears themselves. It's hidden inside the way certain people experience the world. And that's where psychology reveals one of the most fascinating personality traits ever discovered. Some people don't just experience stronger emotions. Their brains actually process the world more deeply. And once you understand this single trait, years of your own behavior may finally begin to make sense. For a long time, people believed that those who cried easily were simply too emotional, too fragile, too sensitive. But psychology began revealing a completely different story. Some people don't just feel more, they process the world more deeply. Imagine two people walking through the same park. They hear the same birds, watch the same sunset, pass the same strangers, experience the very same afternoon, yet one person barely notices it, while the other feels something they can't even explain. A quiet sense of beauty, a sudden wave of gratitude, a lump in their throat. that seems to appear out of nowhere. Nothing around them changed. Only the way their brain processed the experience. Psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron described this pattern as a personality trait known as high sensitivity. It isn't an illness, it isn't a weakness, and it isn't something that needs to be fixed. It simply means that some people's nervous systems naturally process information more deeply than average. They notice small changes in people's voices, tiny shifts in facial expressions, the silence between sentences, the sadness hidden behind a smile. Where others hear words, they hear feelings. A simple compliment can stay with them for weeks. A harsh comment can echo inside their mind long after everyone else has forgotten it. A piece of music may bring tears, not because of the lyrics, but because it reminds them of something they've never fully let go of. The world often mistakes deep feeling for weakness because deep feeling is invisible. No one can see how much your mind is processing. From the outside, people only notice the tears. They never see everything that came before them. And that's why people who cry easily are often misunderstood. Not because they feel emotions that nobody else feels, but because they experience them with extraordinary depth. Yet there's another side to this story, because feeling deeply also means feeling stress more deeply, disappointment more deeply, loss more deeply. A highly sensitive brain doesn't just absorb beauty, it absorbs pain too. And when too many emotions build up inside the nervous system, the body sometimes chooses the healthiest language it knows. Tears, not because the person it is breaking, but because their emotional system has reached its limit. Sometimes crying isn't the sound of weakness, it's the sound of the nervous system asking for relief. But if this trait is completely natural, why do so many people feel ashamed every time they cry? Because the answer may have nothing to do with biology and almost everything to do with childhood. Long before most of us learned how to hide our emotions, someone quietly taught us which emotions were acceptable and which ones were not. Long before you learned how to control your emotions, someone was teaching you how to respond to them. As children, we don't decide which feelings are acceptable. We learn by watching the people who raise us. For some children, tears are met with comfort. A parent kneels beside them, asks softly, "What happened?" They aren't told to stop feeling. They're taught that emotions are safe, but not every child hears those words. Some hear, "Stop crying. You're overreacting. Be strong. Big boys don't cry. There's nothing to cry about." At first, they sound like ordinary sentences, but a child's brain doesn't hear ordinary sentences. It hears instructions for survival. Slowly, those words become rules. Rules about love, rules about acceptance, rules about which parts of yourself are allowed to exist. Imagine a 7-year-old child standing quietly with tears in their eyes. They don't need to understand psychology. They only need one sentence. Stop crying. The tears stop, but the lesson stays. Years pass. The child grows older, finds a job, builds relationships, smiles more, cries less. From the outside, everything looks normal, but inside, something has changed. The emotions never disappeared. They simply lost permission to exist. Psychologists call this emotional suppression, not because the feelings are gone, but because the brain learns that expressing them may lead to shame, rejection, or losing someone's approval. And here's the surprising part. Suppressing emotions doesn't erase them. It simply changes where they're carried. Sometimes they become anxiety, sometimes constant tension, sometimes exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to fix. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. This is why some people cry over what seems like a very small moment. A stranger showing unexpected kindness. Someone asking, "Are you okay?" A hug they weren't expecting. It isn't always that moment they're crying for. Sometimes it's every moment. They never allowed themselves to feel. The tears belong to today, but the wound may belong to another version of yourself, one who never learned that crying was allowed. Maybe that's why some of the strongest people cry when nobody is watching, not because they're weak, but because they've spent years trying to be what everyone else expected them to become. But here's the greatest misunderstanding of them all. What if crying isn't evidence that something inside you is broken? What if it's evidence that something inside you is still beautifully human? Modern psychology has discovered something most people never expect. In many situations, the people who allow themselves to feel their emotions often recover better than those who spend years trying to hide them. So why have we spent generations believing the exact opposite? For generations, people have believed that the strongest person is the one who never cries, who never breaks, who never lets their emotions show. But perhaps we've misunderstood strength all along. Modern psychology doesn't describe emotions as flaws. It describes them as information, signals designed to help us understand ourselves and the world around us. Fear warns us. Joy connects us. Grief reminds us that something once mattered. And tears may be one of the oldest ways the human brain has ever communicated, not because it has failed, but because some experiences are simply too meaningful for words alone. Think about the moments people cry the most: when they finally feel safe, when they survive something painful, when they hear the words they waited years to hear, or when, after carrying everything alone, they finally realize they don't have to anymore. Sometimes tears aren't the sound of a person breaking. They're the sound of a person finally putting down a weight they've carried for far too long. That doesn't mean crying is always the answer, and it doesn't mean crying easily is always healthy. If emotions become so overwhelming that they begin affecting your daily life, your relationships, or your ability to function, reaching out to someone you trust or a qualified mental health professional can be an important step. Understanding your emotions also means knowing when you don't have to carry them alone. But for many people, the tears themselves aren't the real problem. The shame attached to them is. Imagine spending years believing that every tear made you weaker. How many emotions would you hide? How many memories would you bury? How many parts of yourself would slowly disappear just to appear strong? Real strength has never been the absence of emotion. Real strength is having the courage to feel deeply without allowing pain to define who you are. Perhaps the people who cry easily aren't broken. Perhaps they simply refuse to become numb. They still notice the kindness others overlook. They still hear the pain hidden behind someone's smile. They still feel the beauty that others rush past. And maybe in a world that constantly teaches us to feel less, that isn't weakness at all. Maybe it's one of the bravest ways to remain human. Maybe the question was never, why do I cry so easily? Maybe the better question is, who taught me that I was supposed to stop? Because the people who feel the deepest pain are often the same people who give the deepest love. Maybe your tears were never proof that you were weak. Maybe they were proof that your heart never forgot how to feel.